are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, February 21st. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Dak Prescott and the possibility of him resetting the quarterback market. There's rumors out there that he could command for a $60 million contract. So we'll see if that happens, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Falcons quarterback situation, how they're going to address the quarterback position this offseason, because, you know, they have a good roster, but that's one of the missing pieces for them is at quarterback. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about Saquon Barkley and the Giants. It seems like they're likely not going to use the franchise tag on him, as that the franchise tag period has now opened. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll get into players that could possibly be salary cap casualties and end up getting cut because of their cap numbers. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Dak Prescott and his contract situation. So, yeah, there's rumors out there that he could command a $60 million extension, which would reset the market completely. It's, you know, the Cowboys are in a tough spot right now. If they end up not, you know, meeting his demands, he can end up becoming a free agent. But, you know, this is something that's kind of been a back and forth for a while is, you know, should the Cowboys pay Dak? Should they not? And it just, you know, listen, Dak Prescott, I've said, I think is a solid quarterback. You know, he's coming off of a solid season. You know, at one point he was, you know, in the lead for MVP. But, I mean, listen, I don't think anybody is worth that kind of money. But, I mean, obviously that's kind of an old take. But, yeah, I mean, $60 million. And again, he's not the best quarterback in his sport. But, yeah, I mean, coming off of a season where he had 4,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 105.9 passer rating. You know, definitely much improved from 2022. Did miss some time with injury, but, you know, last year in 2022, had 2,800 yards passing, 23 touchdowns with 15 interceptions. And then the year before that, in 2021, he had 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So, yeah, I mean, comparing his stats from 2022 to 2023, definitely improved. And at one point, again, was, you know, an MVP candidate. But, yeah, I just, you know, it's, again, the Cowboys, it's something that they've gone back and forth with for a long time. And, you know, you look on the other side, though, it's like, what is the alternative if you move off of Dak Prescott? Because, again, I don't think Dak Prescott is a quarterback that's going to elevate your team. You know, but I think he could definitely, I mean, if he ended up leaving the Cowboys and going somewhere else, I think, you know, if he ends up in the right situation, he's going to be good for you. I mean, he may win you a playoff game, but that's really it. I don't really see Super Bowl, in him. But listen, the Cowboys have a lot of talent, and it's just year after year, they just they can't really seem to take that next step. Now, again, I think he's become a better quarterback. Um, since it's kind of become his team, because you go back. I mean, I have his stats right here. I mean, 2016, 23 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, 3,600 yards passing. Then 3,300 yards passing, 22 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. 2018, 22 touchdowns to 8 picks. 2019, almost 5,000 yards passing, 30 touchdowns to 11 picks. 2020, obviously, he got hurt, only had 9 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. But yeah, 37 touchdowns to 10 picks in 2021, and then 23 to 15, 36 to 9. So once this team, they kind of went away from the run and made it more of this is Dak's team, because that's really what it was the first couple of years. It was Ezekiel Elliott. He was the engine of the team. And then they kind of went away from that, and it was more of Dak's team. And Dak's putting up better numbers. But, again, it still hasn't really amounted to anything. I mean, Dak's rookie season, the Cowboys were the number 1 seed, and they lost to the Packers. They were the 2 seed this year, lost to the Packers. And they can't get past the divisional round, losing to the Rams, losing to the 49ers. It's just, they can't take that next step. And I feel like, listen, you pay Dak Prescott, you have your quarterback, but you're not going to go that far in the playoffs. And again, I also mentioned the fact that, head coaching wise, they need to upgrade there, because, Jason Garrett was there for a while with Dak, and again, didn't really go anywhere. And it's the same thing with Mike McCarthy. That's something that they need to fix, and try to bring somebody in that's a better candidate. But again, you also have to look at Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones wants his guy. And, sometimes, he goes with his heart rather than with his head. And that's what happened with Jason Garrett. Seems like that's happening with Mike McCarthy. And that's something Cowboys fans have been saying. You could even look on social media. If Jerry Jones takes a back seat and lets somebody else make the decisions, it'll be better for the Cowboys. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, I just think it would be, it would definitely be interesting if Dak Prescott ends up being, the highest paid quarterback. Because, again, he doesn't deserve it. Because, again, a solid quarterback, he is not the best QB in his sport. He's not, and sometimes you don't have to be. Sometimes if you're the best QB, you're not going to be the highest paid. I mean, look at Tom Brady, and the pay cuts that he took, so the Patriots could keep a lot of their guys. You see Mahomes looking to restructure his contract. But sometimes you have to overpay to keep your guys. I mean, you see that everywhere. But I mean, $60 million. He's not really worth that kind of money. But they're going to end up giving it to him. And again, I mean, the Cowboys, look, next year, I still think they're going to be a good team, but I don't really see them as a team that's going to, really for me, it's going to be, you're going to have to show me that you could take that next step. Because I gave them the benefit of, hey, you're in a weak conference, you should get to the NFC Championship game. Couldn't even get out of the first round. And again, some of that falls on the quarterback. Now, again, the defense was not good. But, again, 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick six. Got to show up for the postseason. Again, we're seeing it's very, very similar career to what Tony Romo was doing. You get to the playoffs and then they don't do anything. So, I mean, I don't think he deserves this kind of money if he ends up getting a $60 million extension. from the Cowboys or whoever. But again, what's the alternative? Because you have a roster in place that is a playoff team, and you got stars on both sides of the ball. But it's they can't, like I keep saying, they can't take that next step. So I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. Again, something else to keep an eye on in the off season. If the Cowboys do indeed open their wallets and they pay him, again, coming off of a good year, but they came up small in the playoffs again, and that's something that you are evaluated by, and you're put under a microscope for, is your success in the playoffs. And he's not very good in the playoffs. He's only got 2 playoff wins. I mean, it's crazy how he's going to be going into what next year's going to be his 10th season, right? I think so, right? 16, 17, 18, 19. No, it's not. Well, ninth season. Yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's crazy how he's been in the league that long. But again, that just shows you how fast time goes. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't really have a lot to show for it when he doesn't perform in the playoffs. And again, I think he's gotten better. But I mean, listen, and he did say he wasn't going to throw double-digit interceptions this season. Well, in the regular season, he didn't. But if you count that with the postseason, he did. So, and listen, the talent is there. But, I mean, listen, how do they stack up against the 49ers? Like, that's the team that's standing in your way. Well, again, you lost to the Packers. The conference is going to be better, but that's the team that, every other team, it's up in the air. I mean, because, listen, they won the close game against the Lions. They could have won both games against the Eagles. I think they're better than every team in the NFC South. I know they did lose to the Packers. But I guess it's just, maybe it's just the Packers and the 49ers. You just can't beat them in the playoffs. So it's really those 2 teams, and then it's everybody else. But I would have liked to have seen the Cowboys and the Lions. I would have liked to have seen a rematch of that in the playoffs to see how that would have went. But yeah, we didn't get that. But listen, it's fine. Well, I mean, we'll at least see it next year when they both play each other in the regular season. So, but yeah, it's just, again, the conference is going to be better next year. Again, it's still not loaded like it has been in years past. But, again, I mean, when you're the Cowboys and you come up small in the playoffs, it really doesn't matter. So, we'll see what ends up happening. But, yeah, again, this is something to keep an eye on. $60 million contract per year. I mean, it's a lot of money. And, again, he's coming off of a good season. So, yeah, you deserve to get paid. But, again, when you talk about it from, like, a fan perspective, I mean, there's fans that are going to say, well, again, the Cowboys come up small in the playoffs. And he didn't play well. And that was, at that point, that was the biggest game of the year. And, again, they came up small. But, again, we'll see what happens. And because this is something that's been a back and forth thing for a long time on, if they should pay Dak or not. And now it's time. So, well, the extension at least. So we'll see, if they end up really opening up their wallet for it. Yeah, so he's in the so he's in the final year of his 4-year, $160 million deal signed after the 2020 season that included $126 million guaranteed. So yeah, this new contract, this contract extension is going to be, even higher. But yeah, and we'll see. we'll see what ends up happening. But like I said, I mean, it's just crazy how long he's been in the league for. Again, I felt like it was yesterday when I was watching his debut against the Giants, and the Giants actually won that game. See, the Cowboys were the 1 seed that year, and the Giants somehow beat them twice. I mean, the Giants made the playoffs, but I don't know how the Giants did it. First game of the year, they won 20-19, and then the game late in the season when Cowboys were one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, the Giants held them to 7 points, and they won 10-7. But yeah, but I mean, yeah, it was something that they were debating for a while to pay him, but they did that with his first contract, and now contract extension. What is it going to be? So, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about this. I mean, I think a lot of people will agree Dak Prescott is not worth $60 million, but should the Cowboys pay Dak, or should they let him go and try to find another option? Because again, you could look at both options and say, well, he's not worth the money, but at the same time, you get rid of him, and who are you bringing in to replace him? Cooper Rush? Well, you also have Trey Lance. That's another thing, too. You have Trey Lance. Maybe you give Trey Lance a shot. I don't know. Actually, is Trey Lance a free agent? I'm not sure. Wait, I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, I forgot that they still have him too. And listen, Cooper Rush did win them a couple of games. All right, so after 2024, Lance becomes a free agent unless the Cowboys decide to exercise. Okay, his 5th-year option. Okay. All right, so that's what the Trey Lance stuff. But yeah, we'll see. If they give Dak Prescott that contract extension. But yeah, so when we come back from our first break of the show, we'll talk about how the Falcons will address their quarterback situation, their quarterback position. Yeah, so that is what we'll do when we come back from our first break of the show. So, that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about how the Falcons are going to address their quarterback position. So, their head coach and GM, that's what they're prioritizing here in the offseason is the quarterback position. They're going to explore all options, whether it's a trade, free agency, the draft, to try to improve this quarterback position. And it was kind of that was really the difference, you would say. I mean, I guess you could also throw in coaching as well, which is why Arthur Smith is no longer there. But, I mean, again, if they had a better quarterback, Falcons probably make the playoffs. At one point I thought they were because, they beat the Bucks and the Saints. So it looked like that was going to happen. Like, this was earlier in the year, of course. But then that ended up not happening. I mean, you had Desmond Ridder him being inconsistent and then benching him, putting in Heineke, then going back to Ritter because Heineke got hurt, and then they went back to Heineke again, and then Desmond Ritter, he started. I know he started the last game of the regular season, right? He did start the last game of the regular season against the Saints, but yeah, I mean, it just it just was a mess of a season. Well, not really a mess, but just like it was inconsistent. So I just want to make sure that. Oh yeah, so yeah, Desmond Ritter did start that game. They actually did put in against the Saints, but then they put in Logan Woodside. At one point, he played. But yeah, it just was a lot of back and forth with the quarterback position. Actually, both Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke are under contract for 2024. But yeah, I mean, the team is still looking to upgrade. Now, look, you got free agency. You got Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill. But also, Russell Wilson could be a possibility if he does end up getting released. Justin Fields, he's a possibility when it comes to, if they want to explore a trade. The Falcons right now, they have the 8th pick in the draft, and it's a possibility they could trade up to maybe get one of the top quarterbacks. And yeah, I mean, listen, they have some good players on their team, that, it'd be nice to see how they would produce with a good quarterback. Talk about Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London. I mean, listen, any quarterback that steps into that situation, I mean, it's a good situation when you got all these playmakers. Then it's just up to you to get them the ball. But I also did want to talk about Justin Fields because, so again, whenever stuff like this happens, people tend to go a little bit nuts over it. So some fans are interpreting Fields' social media activity as a potential indication of where he could go next. And there's a lot of rumors out there that maybe he goes to the Falcons. So he has followed players from certain teams around the league on social media. And, that's something that is being taken notice of. And there's a possibility that maybe Fields gets traded. So, and again, this is stuff I was reading on. And, so it talks about, Ryan Poles, the general manager. Seems like they might be leaning towards drafting Caleb Williams, which then would lead to Fields getting traded. But then there's also that scenario that has been talked about where they keep Fields and they also draft a quarterback, which they should not do that. They should not do that. Either get assets for Fields, which you're not going to get as much for the number 1 overall pick, or you get a massive haul for the number 1 overall pick, and you keep Fields and you continue to build around him. Because the Bears have a couple of first-round picks if they end up, keeping the number 1 overall pick. And you also, I think, where are they at? They're at 7? No, they're in the top 15. So actually, we'll take a look at that though. But yeah, I mean, the Falcons, they got a ton of playmakers. So, if he gets traded there, that's not a bad situation to be in at all. But first of all, it has to happen. Oh, so yeah, the Bears, they got 9, so they have the 9th overall pick. And some of them are, some of the mock drafts are coming out. I saw one that they had them getting Roma Dunze, the wide receiver. And listen, again, to go along with DJ Moore, I mean, that's a good combination there that ends up happening. But again, who's going to be throwing the ball? Is it Fields? Is it Caleb Williams? I mean, again, got to wait and see. Got to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, you look at the production that they got out of the quarterback position in 2023, and yeah, again, inconsistent. I mean, they benched Ritter and they went to Heineke, and it's just, it didn't really work out. Because, yeah, I mean, you look at, so Heineke's numbers, he had 890 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 74.7 passer rating. And then for Desmond Ritter, he had 2,800 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 12 picks, 83.4. And, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the difference. I mean, if they can upgrade a quarterback, I mean, definitely can win a few more games. But also you got to see how the coaching staff, is as well. If you go back and look, they lose to the Commanders by 8. Desmond Ridder had 3 picks in that game. Lost by 3 to the Vikings. That was the Josh Dobbs game when, Jaron Hall gets hurt. They put Dobbs in, and Dobbs leads them to a win. Will Levis torched them in his debut. Kyler Murray's first game back, they lost by 2. Heineke started the game, and then Ridder had to come in because Heineke got hurt. You lose to the Bucs by 4. You lose to the Panthers by 2. You lose 9-7. And I think it's because they kicked the game-winning field goal, I believe. Yeah. So you lost that game. Then the last 2 games of the regular season against the Bears and against the Saints, they got blown out both times, 37-17 and then 48-17. I guess because, I shouldn't really say the season was, they mailed it in, because the week before on Christmas Eve they beat the Colts 29-10 at home. So, yeah, it just, it's a disappointing season for them. But, listen, I think if they can get the right quarterback in their system, then they're going to be on an upward trajectory. So, again, they got plenty of options. But as to, how they're going to address it. But it's, and I did see something that said they like Desmond Ridder, but he's got to improve, so. But I don't think the answer is on their roster. I think they got to go explore elsewhere, whether it is trading up in the draft, whether it is trading for Fields or getting one of the quarterbacks that could be available in free agency. I know we talk about Kirk Cousins, but what if the Vikings franchise tag him, I don't know if they're going to, we'll see if that ends up happening, but if it doesn't, yeah, he's going to be a free agent, and there's going to be teams that are going to try to get him because he's going to be the, one of the top guys. And then I'm curious to see Russell Wilson too. If he gets released, what ends up happening with him, where he ends up going, because the team will pick him up. I saw also, Mike Tannenbaum was saying that he was suggesting, I think it was him, that the Jets should then sign Russell Wilson to be the backup to Aaron Rodgers. First of all, I don't think Russell Wilson's going to do that. But, Russell Wilson as a backup quarterback, that's not bad. It's not bad to have. But, it's a little out there for, I don't think that's happening. Also you got Jimmy Garoppolo too, who's going to be out there as well. But I think Russell Wilson can be I saw something else that there were teams out there saying that he's still a starter. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is trending more towards being a backup, which, yeah, that I would agree with that. But for the Falcons, they need a starting quarterback because again, you got all these playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. They need somebody. And, whether it's Fields or Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson or whoever, they're definitely upgrades over what they have now. And actually, this was kind of a debate that we were having in our production meeting was, first of all, we were talking about, I know one of the things that was brought up was talking about, brought up Tua. Tua was brought up into the conversation, and if, you got to pay him $50 million. Do you do it or you let him walk? Or is he worth that kind of money? And, again, Tua is, was solid this year, but like Dak Prescott, it's not worth that kind of money, but again, it's like, what is the alternative? So, and then the other thing too is Justin Fields. What's the consensus on Fields? Now, again, I think he's a great runner, but in terms of him throwing the ball, yeah, that's something you got to improve on. And I think you saw a little bit of that when he came back from injury, but, I'm not going to throw him up there with, some of the elite passers of the game. I mean, again, what makes him special is him being able to run. But again, that's something that we talked about with Lamar Jackson and him not throwing, him not being a great passer. But he definitely improved that. And I know Lamar Jackson has not had success in the playoffs, but he's been a better quarterback, since he first came into the league. And with the Ravens surrounding him with talent, and that's what the Bears are trying to do with Justin Fields. It's just, the beginning of the year started off rough, then he gets hurt, then he comes back, and the Bears they made a little bit of a run towards the end, but it's again, we'll see. I mean, the Bears, listen, I think that they're not that far off from being maybe a playoff contender, but got to figure out the quarterback position. And I don't know about Eberflus as the coach. Again, they played better towards the end of the year, but I don't know. I have to, again, got to see how the season plays out in 2024. But again, and the big question mark is who's going to be playing quarterback. And Fields, he could be on his way out. Goes to Atlanta. Again, that's a solid supporting cast that he'd be going to. So, if that ends up happening, but I don't know. He's got to improve it. Throwing the ball. Because again, what he could do with his legs. Now it's all about being more consistent as a passer. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. What do you think the Falcons should do at quarterback? Well, this is what they're not going to do, but do they ride with one of the options they still have? Do they try to address it through free agency, trade, draft? What's the best way for the Falcons to address their quarterback position? For me, I mean, yeah, it's kind of tough. Because, I mean, if you trade up and you try to get one, I mean, because, I don't know, it is tough. Because, again, Kirk Cousins, that would be a great option. It's just you worry about the Achilles injury. Although, I don't know. I feel like for me, I feel confident he's going to bounce back. But, they could do that. Go with Russell Wilson maybe if he's available. You trade for Fields. I guess maybe the draft. Because you still have, I mean, this team is the playmakers that they have are still young. So and you got a new head coach. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So yeah, when we come back from our second break of the show, we are then going to talk about the Giants and Saquon Barkley. Will the Giants franchise tag Saquon Barkley? It doesn't seem like that's likely, so what does that mean for both sides? So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about whether the Giants will franchise tag Saquon Barkley or not. So the franchise tag period is upon us. And listen, this is something the Giants did last year. Now, last year, the franchise tag for running backs was $10.1 million. If Barkley is tagged again, there would be a 20% increase in salary. So it would be $12 million for the 2024 season. And listen, Barkley in 2022 was coming off of a good season, missed a few games in 2023 because of injury. He finished with 962 rushing yards. But yeah, I mean, the Giants season, it was a mess. It was a mess this year, with Daniel Jones going down and getting hurt, and, you had Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito playing. I mean, the offensive line was not good. It was a lost season for the Giants. And, now Saquon Barkley, he's getting older. He's going to be 27. So, yeah, and we see what the running back position has now become in the NFL. You get up there in your late 20s and you're declining already, which is it's weird because when I was younger, you're watching Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson and Marshawn Lynch, you're like, oh, these guys are never going to retire. These guys are always going to be good. But now it's just a little different. And the Giants, they did offer Barkley a contract. They tried to sign him to a 3-year deal, but that ended up not happening. And now talks seem to be talks are going to resume at the combine. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But yeah, I mean, if some of these other running backs don't get franchise tagged, you're going to see a lot of big free agent running backs on the market. Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, they were guys that got franchise tagged as well last year, along with Barkley. So those guys are going to be free agents. Derrick Henry. We'll see what happens with Austin Eckler. You also have DeAndre Swift as well. Actually, Austin Eckler, I think, is available. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of free agent running backs. So it's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys end up. But now, should the Giants sign Saquon Barkley? Now, again, I'm a fan of the Giants, of course. But I don't know. For me, as a fan, yeah, I would like to see him be back with the team. But ultimately, do I think that losing him is the worst thing in the world? No, I don't. I think the Giants have a lot of areas that they need to address, and I feel like the other areas are more important than the running back position. The quarterback, offensive line, even pass catchers too. I feel like, and again, you want to have a good running game because, there were years with Eli Manning where you had Orleans Darkwa as your lead running back. Again, that's an immaculate grid player that you should use if there's a way to use him. Even though I really only remember him playing with the Giants. He was definitely on other teams. I just don't remember off the top of my head who else he played for. But yeah, you had Orleans Darkwa. And he actually, coincidentally enough, he wore number 26. So he was the original Saquon Barkley. But again, that's a throwback. But yeah, it's just you want to have a good running game. And right now, the Giants, if they lose Barkley, well, you got to replace him. I mean, I know they drafted Eric Gray, but I mean, you're gonna have to address the position. But yeah, I mean, I think from a financial standpoint, I think, listen, if it gets to a certain point within these negotiations where the numbers are not matching up on both sides, then the Giants should be like, all right, we're good. We're going to let you go. And listen, I think Barkley, he might be, I mean, he's definitely, if you talk about the running backs that are going to be available, he's going to be at the top. He's either going to be one or two, I feel like. Because I think him, Jacobs, well, even Pollard too. I mean, listen, Derrick Henry, we talk about the age, Derrick Henry's 30. Now, I think Derrick Henry would work well in the right system if you have another running back that could complement him. But I think just in terms of his age, I would probably rank him a little bit lower. Then you got Austin Eckler, which, again, he's more of a pass-catching running back. And I think he could still help a team out. But I think you look at Jacobs and Barkley, those are probably the top two, in my opinion. You also got DeAndre Swift, like I said. But yeah, I think Barkley still has a couple of good years left. But again, I mean, you've got to put in the right situation. And there are teams out there that, need running backs. I mean, you look at the Ravens. I mean, their running backs are free agents. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Which to be honest, I didn't realize that until I saw, that they're going to be free agents. So they could be looking to maybe get Barkley. The Houston, I would love to see him go to the Texans. I mean, obviously, yeah, I would like to see him stick with the Giants, but the Texans, I think, would be a great spot in that offense with C.J. Stroud and how he performed this year and the young weapons that he has throwing the. I mean, what was the weakness of the team on offense? It was the running game. Evan Singletary did a nice job, but this is Saquon Barkley now that you're bringing in. If that ended up happening, yeah. I mean, I would like to see Barkley go somewhere where he could flourish. But also the other thing too is listening to the radio, here, and yeah, I mean the Giants, they didn't trade Barkley during the season, and they weren't going anywhere, and that probably would have been the time to move off of him. Now, if you end up losing him in free agency, you're not going to get anything really for him. So it's like, then why did you not trade him? I mean, I guess maybe because they thought they could bring him back, but Saquon wants to get paid. And then there is that whole debate on now. It's like, well, should they have paid Barkley first and then Daniel Jones? And it's just, again, you look at it and you say, well, the quarterback position is more important. But with this specific situation, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Daniel Jones was a different player when he does not have Saquon Barkley on the field. And when Saquon's playing, Daniel Jones plays good. When he's not playing, doesn't really play that good. It's you've seen that, and yeah, Saquon Barkley is, I think, more of the engine for the Giants as opposed to Daniel Jones. And listen, the Giants have won games without Saquon when Daniel Jones does play. But I mean, you go back to 2020. I mean, Saquon, he tore his ACL in week 2. And the Giants, listen, they had a losing record, but they had a shot to win the NFC East. But and the other thing too, and yeah, that's the other thing, injuries. Injuries has been a problem for Barkley. He's, other than his rookie season, and I think, last year, actually, no, he didn't miss any games in 2022. Except I guess the last game of the regular season against the Eagles. Could be wrong on that. But yeah, he pretty much played in every game in 2022. 2023 missed a couple games. Injuries is a problem. And as you get older, yeah, it's going to be even more of a problem. I mean, you just wish that the Giants had a better team around him. And the problem is they just have a lot of areas that they need to fix. And I feel like those areas I think are more important to worry about as opposed to, paying Saquon Barkley. Because listen, you bring back Saquon Barkley, that's great. But quarterback is still a question mark. The offensive line, defense still needs some work, even though they got some good players on that side of the ball. But on top of that, you got a new system that you got to implement because Wink Martindale's not there anymore. And they brought in the defensive coordinator from the Titans. So yeah, it's a new. It's just almost every year with the Giants, there's always something changing that where they can't establish consistency. That's why it was great when you had both coordinators coming back for this year, both Martindale and Kafka. But then of course, Dable and Martindale had the falling out with Dable firing his assistants, and then Martindale leaves. Now he's going to be the defensive coordinator of Michigan. He's not even in the NFL anymore. I mean, he'll probably find his way back, but I mean, again, I don't think going to Michigan is that bad of a gig. I mean, they just won the national championship. I mean, things are going to be different next year with Harbaugh being gone, and but again, that's not a bad place to go to, when it comes to going to coach in college, but. Yeah, it's just with the Giants, it's just there's always something. There's always something. Now it's with the head coaches. Well, in terms of, I guess, I mean, the Giants head coaches, there's been some drama that's surrounded them. I mean, you go back to Ben McAdoo and when they were benching Eli for Geno Smith. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's been drama with that. But I mean drama like that with, like, their coaches on their team. I mean, I don't really, I don't really remember there being drama with, the head coach and other coaches on the team, before Dable with Wayne Martindale, unless I'm missing something. I mean, Joe Judge, Pat Shurmur, Ben McAdoo, they all had their moments, and not good ones. But I think this one was kind of a different situation with Dable and Martindale. But yeah, it's just it's always something. It's always something with the Giants, and really to answer it, the original question, will the Giants franchise tag him? I mean, yeah, it looks probably not. Probably not. But I mean, they could, and then they try to work out a deal again, but I don't know. Because yeah, I mean, you didn't trade him, so like you obviously want to keep him, but I don't know. I think it's just the Giants have so many other areas that they need to improve on. It's like the running back position, I think, is one of the there's other priorities besides the running back position. And the running back position is not the top one. The top one, it's either offensive line or quarterback. It's one of those two. I mean, and listen, I said it. I thought Daniel Jones played his last snap as a Giant, but maybe not. I think really the offensive line, that has been a problem for so many years. They really have not been able to fix it since they last won the Super Bowl. And it's incredible. I mean, you see look at the Chiefs. And I know and the Chiefs are the standard of the league right now. But they played the Bucs in the Super Bowl. Mahomes was missing both of his tackles. And they fixed it in one offseason. They drafted well, and then they signed Orlando Brown, they signed Joe Tooney, they drafted Creed Humphrey, and they were fine. And then they won the Super Bowl a couple years later. I mean, they made it to the AFC Championship game and they lost to the Bengals, but still, they fixed it. I don't understand why, and that goes for both New York teams too. They can't fix the offensive line, no matter what they do. Again, Andrew Thomas, who Dave Gettleman drafted, he drafted him. Give him credit. But outside of that, got to figure out the other positions. Because, John Michael Schmitz, I did not say his name right. John Michael Schmitz, okay, there we go. Again, just his rookie season. And why am I drawing a blank on the Giants' right tackle from Alabama? Why am I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name. Because I know when I'm going to see it, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I don't know how Evan Neal, that's who it was. Okay, yeah, I had to pull it up. Evan Neal. I mean, listen, he hasn't been great, so they got to figure that out. They signed Justin Pugh, and when they played the Bills, the Sunday Night Football intros, he said Justin Pugh straight off his couch. Pugh came in and actually didn't do a bad job. The offensive line actually improved a little bit. So, yeah, it's just the Giants have so many problems, and again, it's going to probably come at the expense of Saquon Barkley if they don't end up bringing him back. And I think he should go somewhere else, and I think he would do well if he ends up in the right situation. And, be a playoff contender. 2022 was nice, but, yeah, Giants took a massive step back. And I think they have to prioritize other positions, improving in other areas. And, again, I think that's going to lead to Saquon Barkley going somewhere else. But we'll see. That's just my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Should the Giants franchise tag Barkley and try to work something out, or should they let him walk and I guess find somebody else to fill in at the running back spot? But I just think the Giants have so many other areas that they need to improve on that it's just I think that's Saquon Barkley is going to be left out of that because they just need to improve in other areas. So So yeah, when we come back now from our final break of the show, we'll talk about some candidates that could possibly be salary cap casualties who could end up being released. So yeah, that is what we will do when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about some possible salary cap casualties, who could end up getting cut, getting let go of. So we'll look at teams in both conferences. A couple of articles, I guess you could say, on NFL.com I'll look at and what they have to say. So actually, the first one I saw, this one kind of caught my eye. But I guess it kind of does make sense because, they're coming off of a major injury. And that would be the running back for the Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb. So, yeah, I mean, we saw it, the horrific knee injury in week 2. I mean, that was when that was the beginning of actually, no, we should say the week before that because that was when, Aaron Rodgers got hurt. But, yeah, I mean, then you had Nick Chubb getting hurt the following week. I mean, it was devastating. It really was because he's one of the, he's one of the exciting players to watch, and especially on the Browns. And, he gets hurt. It's actually his second major knee injury because it also, I think in college too. That was when he had his first one. But, yeah, he carries a $15.825 million cap hit in 2024, which is the third highest among running backs. And the Browns, who are currently nearly $20 million over the cap, could certainly use the $11.8 million in savings if they ended up letting Chubb go. So we'll see. I mean, I guess they're going to have to work on restructuring his deal if he wants to stay. I mean, listen, it's tough because, again, he's coming off of a major injury. But, again, he had Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt. They did a nice job. But, yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb. I mean, it would have been interesting to see if, Chubb doesn't get hurt, and, Deshaun Watson gets hurt. How does the season turn out for the Browns? But we'll see. I mean, I think it's also because he's coming off of a major injury, too, which they could say, all right, well, if you don't want to restructure, then we're going to have to let you go. They're going to have to look elsewhere. And then you got Nick Chubb on the free agent market. Another big running back name. I mean, it's funny because a lot of these running backs that are going to be available, at one point, they were first-round picks in fantasy. Like, I just remember there was one year that I was doing fantasy with my friends, and it was like every single pick was pretty much a running back. And it was most of the guys that are going to be free agents: Derrick Henry, Saquon, Chubb, Eckler. It's crazy. So speaking of Eckler, you also got the Chargers. They got some candidates that could be cap casualties. I did see on social media this player could be one of the likely players to get released, and that's Mike Williams. Because Mike Williams, he tore his ACL, and with his cap hit, maybe the Chargers say, and because the Chargers, their cap situation, they have to figure that out, and it could be Mike Williams that ends up getting released. So he has a $32.5 million cap hit. Keenan Allen has a 34.7 cap hit. But Keenan Allen's coming off of a great season. So Mike Williams, I think, is probably the guy that they maybe let go. You also have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, two vets on the defensive side of the ball. I saw something that if Joey Bosa ends up getting released, maybe he goes to San Francisco and plays with his brother. I mean, all these guys on the Chargers, I mean, they could go elsewhere and they could produce. Khalil Mack had a good season. If a team that needs a pass rusher, he could help out. I think the same thing with Joey Bosa. Mike Williams, I mean, listen, is a big wide receiver. The problem with him is, and this has been for his whole career, his health. He just can't stay on the field. But I think a team would pick him up if he ended up getting released. So we'll see what happens. So then you also got C.J. Mosley of the Jets, one of the veterans on that defense. Led the team in tackles in three straight seasons, and trailing only Bobby Wagner, Roquan Smith, and Forside Oluwakan in that statistic since 2021. Again, Jets aren't in great salary cap shape. If they ended up releasing C.J. Mosley, that would free up $11 million, or $17 million if they designate him as a post-June 1st cut. So we'll see what ends up happening. Tre'Davious White of the Bills, I mean, again, he suffered I think it was the Achilles injury earlier in the season. So yeah, he's their corner. The Bills are actually more than $50 million over the cap, and they would save $6 million against the cap by cutting White pre-June 1st, or $10.2 million post-June 1st. So we'll see. A few Miami Dolphins here. You got Teron Armstead, who supposedly has been pondering retirement. Just finished his 11th season. So yeah, if they cut him, that would free up $8.8 million in cap savings, while carrying an $11.4 million in dead money. So we'll see what happens there. Then you got Xavier Howard. And this one, cutting Howard post-June 1st would save the Finns $18.5 million in 2024. Then you got Emmanuel Agba. That would free up $17.7 million. For the Broncos now, so they're $24 million over the cap. So you have Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick that they have listed there. They also have DJ Jones on the defensive line. So, I mean, listen, Cortland Sutton had a good year. And again, the Broncos, I mean, Tim Patrick, I think I could see that happening just because he's been injured the last couple of seasons. He's had bad luck with injuries the last couple of years. So I could see that happening. Actually, is that true? So Patrick, who seems like the team's wide receiver 3 at best, and carries a $15.6 million cap hit of his own. Yeah, so I think it probably ends up being him that gets cut. You got J.C. Jackson of the Patriots. He carries a $14.375 million cap hit. But this is a team that has a lot of cap space, the Patriots, but they could maybe cut him. You got Valdez Scantling of the Chiefs possibly. But we'll see. Tyus Bowser of the Ravens. Hunter Renfrow of the Raiders. I would like to see Renfrow go somewhere else because he had that great 2021 season, and you get Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers you bring in, and they just don't use him. I'd like to see him go somewhere else and produce, because I feel like he still can, but we'll see. You got CJ Uzama as well. He's got an $11.2 million cap hit. Yeah, I could see that. Because you could, Tyler Conklin, he was the tight end one for them. The Bills, Naeem Hines and Deontay Hardy could be cap hits. Justin Reed for the Chiefs, their safety. Cutting him would free up a healthy $10.8 million in cap space. For the Titans, they have Andre Dilliard. Justin Simmons, actually, they have him listed for the Broncos as well. Patrick Peterson, Allen Robinson for the Steelers, and then you also have Eric Kendricks for the Chargers as well. So that's in the AFC. So then we'll take a look at the NFC as well before we wrap up here. Again, the show went really fast, but we're gonna run a little bit over 11:30 here, but that's all right. So the Packers. David Bakhtiari, that's very likely. Bakhtiari, another guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries over the years. Possible, listen, he ends up getting cut. Maybe the Jets scoop him up for Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I mean, he was one of the best left tackles in the league for a long time. But again, it's just, unfortunately, injuries. That's really what's hurt him. Harrison Smith of the Vikings, that's interesting. So his cap hit is $19.2 million, which is fifth highest among all safeties. Releasing him would save $11.4 million against the cap, and $8 in 2024, and then $18.1 million in 2025. So we'll see what happens there. You got Shaq Barrett, another member of the Super Bowl team for the Bucs. He brings so he carries a $14.2 million cap hit in 2024, and then before the first of 4 void years in his contract, brings a $29.4 million cap hit in 2025. So, again, if they ended up losing him, if they ended up releasing him, I mean, that's another guy from the Super Bowl years that they let go. A couple of running backs, Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones. So that would be wild. So I talked about all the running backs that are available. So then Nick Chubb, we'll see if the Browns, I mean, I don't know if the Browns are going to, but we'll see. Then they also have, in the NFC, Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones listed. So if those two guys get cut, again, that just adds to the big names at the running back position that are out there, if that does indeed end up happening. But yeah, I mean, the Saints, their cap situation is the worst. They are a league high $84 million over the cap. And yeah, listen, Alvin Kamara, he's starting to decline a little bit. So maybe they move off of him. I know they drafted Kendry Miller last year, so I mean, we'll see if they end up doing that. Aaron Jones, we'll see. A.J. Dillon is set to hit free agency, so the running back situation at with the Packers could be something to keep an eye on. He's got a $17 million cap hit, Aaron Jones, and he sits just behind Alvin Kamara for the highest among running backs. And, yeah, listen, I mean, he missed some time with injury, but, listen, he played well in the postseason. But, we'll see. Demario Davis, one of the vets on the Saints defense, he carries an $18.2 million cap hit. So we'll see. Kevin Byard came over from the Titans with the Eagles. So releasing him and his $14.4 million cap hit, that would be something that's a possibility. That would open up $13.3 million in cap space. Actually, also have Kenny Clark listed here. That's interesting. Actually, it says $27.5 million of cap space entering the last year of his deal. So yeah, I mean, he's making a ton of money. Cutting him post June 1st, that would open up $17 million of cap space. For the Cowboys, a couple of their receivers, Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks. I mean, those are some playmakers. I mean, I could see Michael Gallup being released because he's kind of become that forgotten guy. I mean, because Gallup at one point was, he was the top weapon of the offense. But, then they draft CeeDee Lamb, you had Amari Cooper, and then now, you bring in Brandon Cooks. So I could see Michael Gallup being a cap casualty. I think the Lions already did this, but they cut safety Tracy Walker. Jonnu Smith, he's also listed for the Falcons. A couple of offensive linemen for the Rams, Brian Allen and Joe Noteboom. So we'll see. Taysom Hill for the Saints. So I mean, we'll see what happens there. Mark Lewinsky of the Giants. Russell Gage of the Bucks. I could see that. Because he didn't even play in 2023, so I could definitely see that. And then also you have Quandre Diggs of the Seahawks as well. But yeah, so yeah, those are all the candidates. Some big names. that could possibly be let go. So we'll just have to wait and see. But, yeah, that's pretty much it with the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, same time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.